Hey guys, welcome back to How to Build a Blog with Laravel. This is a special episode we're doing today because this is a frequently asked questions episode. And so we've been doing this series. It's been 13 parts now. We're probably close to halfway through, maybe not quite. And we'll talk about kind of where we're going with this in a second because that's one of the most common questions we get. But anyway, I basically want to take a chance here just to answer questions that keep coming up over and over and over again. And so I figure, hey, if we got a bunch of people having the same question, there's probably a bunch of you that may not have been asking those questions that are wondering the exact same thing. So I want to just kind of address some of the most common questions head on right now in this episode. I'll see you in a second. We'll get started. All right, guys. So in this episode, we're going to be answering frequently asked questions about this blog series or this Laravel blog series. And so that's what we're going to do for this episode. I got part 14 in the works. We'll talk about that in just a second and kind of where we're going with this also. But I just want to take a chance to answer the questions that are coming up over and over and over again to try to help you guys that might be having the same questions and you just you haven't asked them yet or didn't know how to contact me. Just so you guys do know, I'm always available for questions if you have any. The best way, especially if it's related to a video, is to comment below each video. That's the best way, not only do I respond to those, I actually look at them several times a day and respond to them as quickly as possible, but it also helps other people that might have the same questions. So if it's specific to that video, that's kind of the best way to answer it because it allows me to write a long response if I need, and also it's going to help other people because it's a public response, and so they can look down and read and see if they had the same problem, how to fix it. Okay, so that's kind of one way. You can also hit me up on Twitter. My username is @_JA Curtis, so _JA Curtis, and that's one way to hit me up. Now, obviously, some of you guys might not have Twitter accounts from what I've heard, and or Twitter's just kind of hard for complex questions. So the other way you can send me an email. My email address is hello@jacurtis.com. So hello@jacurtis.com. I'll have that in the description in case you want it. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got a whole bunch of questions here. I'm going to go through them really, really quick because I don't want this to be too long of a video, but I'm afraid it might be a long episode. So I'm going to try to just blaze through them and get through them and just answer the important parts of them. So the first and probably most common question I keep getting is, when will the next video be released? And I have to quickly apologize. This week was a rough one for me. This last week, I know there was only one video released, and that is not the way it's going to be ongoing, or not the way it has been. I apologize for the delay. This week was busy with work. I do not do YouTube full time, so I have other things I've got to do, to keep the money coming in, and so I was doing that all week, and I'm building up a company doing that, and so it took a lot of my time. I had zero time to get anything done with YouTube or something like that. So apologize for that, but that's kind of what happened this week. The answer to the question kind of ongoing is it should never be more than a day and 2 days, basically. Every other day, I'm hoping to release a video at the latest. And my goal is to do it every single day. But if I don't do it every single day, then kind of my definite, I'm going to try to avoid ever doing less than one every other day, okay? So if I miss a day, just know there's probably one coming the next day, okay? But I'm going to try to, for this series, to get them out daily if possible, all right? So that's kind of the plan with that. A related question is basically, how many videos are we planning on doing? And the answer to that is I really don't know. I'm basically taking feedback from you guys as we go. It's already been quite a bit longer than I initially anticipated because you guys have had asking some really good questions, and so I'm making videos trying to address those questions. And my goal here is just to make a really good series to help those of you that are learning Laravel for the first time and just answer as many questions and teach you as much stuff as possible. And that's my goal. And so I'll do what's ever needed in order to help you guys out and kind of accomplish that goal. So I was originally planning on it being about this long, about maybe 12 episodes, 13 episodes, about where we're at right now, finishing up with the posts and calling it good. But I've got a lot of great requests for other features, so I'm going to keep it going. And if you have other requests, just let me know and we'll fit it in. All right, so that's kind of the answer. Is there's not really an answer. We're going to go as long as we need to answer your questions. And there also will be follow-up videos series I'll be doing in the future. Maybe not specifically a blog that we're creating, but it will be a more intermediate or advanced Laravel tutorial. So we'll hit up the beginner stuff now, and then we'll have intermediate and advanced stuff down the road as well. Now, if you have a lot of people are wanting to suggest new videos, I think that's great. Go ahead and email me you can email me. My email address is hello@jacurtis.com. That's a great way to contact me, and just let me know, hey, I want you guys to, I'd like to see a video about this or that or another thing. And that'd be really good. I'm not guaranteeing I'll do it, but I'm definitely looking for what you guys are interested in right now. And I'm going to try to do them if it's, it fits into kind of my realm, my experience, and what I want the channel to become. So just let me know what you guys want to do. I'm doing this for you guys. So let me know. So if you have suggestions, hit me up on email. It's kind of the best way. All right. In a related thing, everyone wants to know if we're hitting up authentication. So this is if you have like a user system with, users and different roles, and, you want to block certain features from certain people and that kind of stuff, like a login system. That's called user authentication. And yes, that's coming up. That'll actually be coming up soon. We're probably going to do that in we're finishing up CRUD for posts right now. And then as soon as we're done with that, we'll move into user authentication. So it's coming up. That's definitely the most popular feature requested by you guys. I wasn't going to do it originally, but we'll go ahead and do it because that's what you guys wanted. I thought it might be too complex for a beginner tutorial, but you guys are definitely requesting it. I get so many requests for that. So we're going to go ahead and do it because you guys definitely want it. And that's why I'm doing it, is for you guys. So that should basically answer most of the questions about videos. Let me look real quick to see if there's any other questions about videos I have in here. Are more advanced tutorials coming? Yes, they are. I'm finishing up the beginner series, and then we'll go into more advanced and intermediate tutorials. So that is coming. Get that question a lot. Let's see. Okay, that's about it with the video sessions. Some more general questions I'm getting a lot of is, can you post the code to GitHub, or can you post the source code? Well, I wasn't going to do that originally, but again, lots of requests. You guys want to do it, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Starting in part 13 onward, I'll have source code available for every single video. I'm not going to go back and do the old videos because I would basically have to start from scratch because I wasn't doing source control for this tutorial myself. And so I don't really have it, and I'm not going to go back and like rewrite the code for every single video and segregate it into video chunks and stuff. So I'll do it going forward, but I'm not going to do it going backward. But starting in part 13, every video is going to have a link in the description that points to a GitHub repository where you can download the source code. Let me show you how that works real quick in case you're following along. So this is an example of where a link might go. This is for part 13. And it's going to go here to our, I've made a repository on my GitHub account, and it's called Laravel blog tutorial. This is the code here. And you can obviously see all the code by just clicking going to the main repository. And if you want to see the different releases and see kind of where the code was at the end of each video, you're going to be able to go over to release over here at the top. And then you'll see a list of all the releases, which right now there's only one, because as of this video, I've only done part 13. But tonight I'm probably going to work on part 14, 15, and 16. And so you might see some of those coming up as well. So what you're going to be able to do is just click on it and then download the source code as a zip file if you want the code available. So going forward, those will be available to all of you if you want it. Another related video question is, a lot of people are asking if we're going to incorporate Git into our into working on this project. The answer is no, I'm not going to. So I'm using Git myself, and I'm going to use that obviously to submit it to GitHub and track it that way. But my goal of this series is not to confuse you with tons of different technologies. There's a lot of videos out there that I think are overwhelming for beginners because they talk about, it's like pre-compiling CSS languages like Sass, and then they've got Git in there, and they've got CoffeeScript, and they've got all this stuff that, like, while modern developers might use all those things, as a beginner, it's extremely overwhelming. You're trying to learn it's best to learn one thing at a time. We're going to learn Laravel in this series, and then I'll have different series coming up that's all about Git. And then we'll have some all about Sass and all about CopyScript. So we can learn all of those individually, and maybe some of the advanced tutorials, I am going to incorporate all of them together. But for the beginner level tutorials, we're going to keep it simple and focus on one language. And this is mainly focused around PHP and Laravel. And I'm trying to minimize the complicated CSS, the Sass, all that stuff that's involved in it, because I don't want to overwhelm you with multiple languages. Let's focus on the PHP Laravel stuff right now. And that's what this series is about. So that's why I'm not going to do Git, but we will have a special series all about Git and GitHub. And then in some of the intermediate videos, I'm going to just assume you know Git, and we're going to incorporate Git into those projects. Okay. So that's how we're going to be doing Git and some of the other languages. And that's also why we haven't done much with CSS in this video, in this series. And I've just been doing Bootstrap, is because I don't want to focus on some of those things. I just want to focus on the Laravel part, and I don't want to get bogged down in some of the other stuff. And that's also why when we've done the JavaScript and the HTML videos, I've done those as half episodes and made them optional, because again, I don't want to waste too much time on things that aren't part of our core focus. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have coming up? If you guys have any questions, you can obviously email me or leave a comment in the video. I think I mentioned that. All right, so these are kind of some specific questions I want to go over that are going to be specific to certain parts. And I just kind of want to answer those real quick, and then we'll basically be able to finish up. So I've been getting several questions about where do you put in Laravel, where do you put the CSS and JavaScript files if you're not going to load from a CDN. Now, a CDN is a content delivery network. And in our series, if you've been following along with me, I actually loaded, for example, the Bootstrap CSS and the Bootstrap JavaScript through a CDN, because I didn't want to, mess with trying to do it directly. And so, but a lot of people are asking, how would you do it directly? Where would you put your CSS files if you want to do it, if you don't have a CDN? I want to quickly show you how that works. So if I open up my project here, in the public folder is where you would store all of that stuff. You can see we already have a CSS and JavaScript folder. I went ahead and made those. Those don't come with with Laravel, but you can go ahead and make them. And as long as they're in the public folder, everything in the public folder is accessible to anyone on the internet. Okay, and you would just use your basic HTML structure to access things in your public folder. So basically, when people go to your root webpage, they're accessing the public folder. That's the only thing accessible to people, from the public internet. So if let's say example.com is your website. Well, example.com will go to your index.php page in Bootstrap or in public. So this is the page, and you can see what happens here is this actually starts redirecting you to the routes and everything like that. And that's how Laravel works, basically, is because this is the only folder accessible to the internet, is the public folder. Okay, so if you go to example.com, that's the public folder. So if I want to create a folder, or I have a folder called CSS, I just access that by doing /CSS / whatever the file is. So in this case, we've already created one called parsley.css. So you would just write parsley.css, and just like that, and that will find that file for you, and that is accessible on the internet. Okay, so anyone can access that. So if you want to link your own JavaScript and CSS files, that's exactly how you do it. You're going to basically create whatever folders you want in here. They can call them whatever you want, and then you just link them. You can either link them relatively, and if you do a relative link, you would just need to do the CSS / parsley.css. That would be a relative link. If you want an exact link, you can just go back and add the host in there, or you could do something, you could access, I believe it's, you can access like the root variable that comes with PHP and stuff like that. So these are all options for you. I think it's capitalized root. Anyway, if you wanted to do that. However, but that's basically how you access them. Now, in the last video, part 12 and a half, we actually talk about this, and we have helpers. You can add style sheets with this something like called styles, and then you add css/styles.css, something like that. And this goes directly into your public folder, finds the folder called CSS styles.css inside of that, which we don't have. And then it'll create a script tag, like a CSS link tag around all of that. So this is kind of a shortcut that you can use. And we talk about that in part 12 and a half. So if you want to take a look at that, you can go to that video. And we also do scripts, I believe it is, which is like the exact same thing, but for JavaScript. Okay. So that's how you would access that in without needing to do like a CDN or something like that. That's where you would load them directly. Next questions coming up is basically a ton of questions related to PHP Artisan. I want to quickly show you guys this as well. Remember that PHP Artisan Serve is it's launching a local development server, okay? And while you've got your development server running, you cannot run other commands in the same window, okay? So let me quickly show you how that works. So if we just clear our window here, and you can see here I'm in our blog application. If we run PHP Artisan Serve, sorry about that. PHP Artisan Serve, if we run that, we start running our development server, and anything I do in here while the server is running will not work. You can see I'm doing some general Linux commands. I could do PHP Artisan commands. None of these commands are going to work because the server is currently running. So if I want to get these to run, what I need to do is either create a new tab, a new window, or quit the server, okay? So if you want the server to continue running, you can do Command T, and it creates a new tab. You can see the server is still running over here, and in the new tab, I have my name of my computer with a $, which allows me to run new commands inside of here. So these are all going to actually work, and as expected, obviously, okay? Because even though the server's running in the other tab. You can also open a new window if you want. You could have multiple windows like this, and this will do the exact same thing and allow you to run. Or you can quit the server, which is just a Control-C. Will quit the server. Once again, you get this command prompt, and that means that you can actually execute code. But just remember that as soon as you run PHP Artisan Serve, that terminal window is going to be running it's running the web server, and you can't run any commands. Lots of people are trying to run my commands with in the same window they're using their serve. Just make sure you quit the server before you do it, or just do it in a new window. Make sure that when you have a new window that you are in your blog file as well. So you might have to CD into the correct folder before your PHP Artisan commands will work. If you don't, let's just go here. I'm going to do CD, and then we'll do PHP Artisan. We'll just do Artisan Serve, and you can see here that it says it can't find it. Well, that's because we're not in the right folder. We need to get into the folder that has our Laravel project, and that's why it's not working. So if you see that command, that is what is happening. Now, related to the server request, you get lots of questions around people trying to use MAMP, WAMP, and XAMPP. Okay, now for those of you guys that don't know what I'm talking about, let me just show you real quick. If I come over here, you can see there's a website called MAMP, mamp.info, and this is actually a server that you can run. It does the exact same thing that PHP Artisan Serve does, but this runs as kind of its own independent application. And the biggest difference with MAMP, and all of these are the same, there's also one called WAMP, and there's one called XAMPP with an X, XAMPP. And XAMPP is just cross-platform. So WAMP is designed for Windows, MAMP is designed for Mac, and XAMPP is designed to be cross-platform and available on Linux as well. So that's kind of that's what these are. And if you've worked with PHP in the past, you might be really familiar with these. And I think that's why a lot of you are using them, because you've used PHP in the past, and you must have assumed that you need to use them here as well, because you've always needed to use them in the past. I didn't clarify in my previous videos, but you don't need to use this. In fact, it's better if you don't. Laravel just doesn't seem to work well with these programs for whatever reason, and it has its own built-in web server, so you really have no reason to use these programs. You're going to run into lots of errors if you start trying to run the MAMPs, WAMP, or XAMPP, because all of these programs have their own version of PHP installed, their own version of MySQL, and their own version of Apache. And so all of these, it's their own versions of this, which can sometimes cause conflict. For example, Laravel requires something called mcrypt, and you might not have mcrypt installed in the version of PHP that you're using in MAMP or something, but it might be installed at your computer level. Well, because it's not using your computer level PHP, it's using your MAMP PHP, it can cause huge problems. You can have the same thing with MySQL. The credentials you put in for MySQL might link to the one on your computer and not the one in MAMP, and that could cause all sorts of problems as well. And I've gotten tons of people have been sending me bugs, and that's been the response to my bugs, is basically you're linking to the system MySQL instead of the MAMP MySQL. For beginners, I highly recommend you just use the built-in PHP Laravel, PHP Artisan Serve command instead of MAMP. Leave that for more later down the road if you still feel like you need it. I personally still use the built-in one. There's really no benefit of using MAMP or XAMPP. The only benefit is if you're making major changes to the PHP config file or something like that, and you don't want to mess with the system PHP. You want to mess with one that's in a sandbox. That's kind of the benefit of MAMP or XAMPP or WAMP. And so if you're not doing those types of things, it really doesn't make sense to just let Laravel runs really good out of the box using the PHP Artisan Serve command. Let it do that. Just let it do it that way. And I highly recommend you just avoid MAMP, XAMPP, and WAMP, because I'm telling you guys, 90% of the bugs people have been emailing me and sending me are because they were using MAMP and XAMPP, okay? It's because it does really funky things. When I first started learning Laravel, I assumed as well, like many of you, that I would need MAMP. And I tried to avoid using the PHP Artisan Serve, and I had as many problems as you guys are having. Just trust me, it doesn't work with Laravel for very good for some reason. I highly recommend you just use the built-in server. And then on a related note to that, a lot of you guys are using both programs. And if you decide to not listen to me and you decide that you just want to use MAMP, even though I'm telling you it's better to not use it, if you still think that you want to use it, that's great. Just know you're going to have it's going to be a little tougher. You're going to run into some problems, and I may not be, because I don't use Laravel with MAMP very often, I'm going to have a hard time answering some of those questions. I know some of them, but not all of them. But if you decide to do that anyway, what you need to do is make sure that you're not running both MAMP and PHP Artisan Serve. They do the exact same thing, and they tend to cause problems when they're running together. And a lot of you guys are booting up your MAMP server or your WAMP server or your XAMPP server. You're booting up that server, and then you're coming over and you're typing in PHP Artisan Serve. And remember that these are doing the exact same thing. They're just two different applications. PHP Artisan Serve is the exact same thing that MAMP is. It boots up a web server and allows you to run something locally. Same thing as MAMP, WAMP, and XAMPP. All of those do the exact same thing. So you're doing two programs that are doing the same thing, and they can cause conflicts depending on how it's set up. They can cause conflicts with each other and cause lots of havoc and headaches for you guys. So you do one or the other. I highly recommend you just use PHP Artisan Serve. But if you decide to use MAMP or something, then know that you don't need to do PHP Artisan Serve if that's the case. If you're running it through something like MAMP or WAMP, then you don't need to do PHP Artisan Serve because it's doing the same thing that WAMP and XAMPP are doing, okay? So just know that, guys. So I recommend you don't use those programs, but if you do, don't run both the PHP server, Artisan server and the AMP server. Just do one or the other, okay? That should help save a ton of errors. I swear 90% of the bugs people are sending me are because of MAMP and XAMPP, okay? So that should solve it for a lot of you guys. Okay, let's see what other... I think that's basically it. The last question I've got is a big debate between end section and stop. Let's head over to our Laravel application, and I just kind of want to show you real quick what I'm talking about. So... if I come into my views, resources and views, and I'm just going to open up, we'll just open up a page here, welcome page. And in my sections, I'm actually ending all of these sections. I've been teaching you guys to end the sections with something called end section. And some of the various students out there are going out and reading the Laravel documentation. And good for you. You should be. That's awesome. However, Laravel documentation is funky. I'm not joking. There's stuff in there that there's no documentation for anymore, and there used to be, and there's not anymore. And the Laravel documentation is weird. It's really well written, but I think because they spend so much time writing it so well, they miss out on a lot of details because they want to make it easy to follow, okay? And they miss a lot of details. So for those of you out there wondering about that, end section, there in the Laravel documentation, it also mentions that you can do @stop like this, and instead of end section. And a lot of you are wondering why the documentation says to use stop, and I'm telling you to use end section. Okay, so if you were using stop, you would just basically do this right here. You would get rid of end section, and you would just put stop instead of end section. Well, let me just tell you guys that they're exactly the same thing, okay? So I'm telling you to use end section. Stop. You can also use stop. It doesn't matter which you use. I'm used to using end section. That's just the way I'm used to. That's how I learned it, so that's what I'm doing. That's just the way I learned to do it, so that's how I do it. But it doesn't matter. You can use stop and you can use end section. In the Laravel source code, if you look at it, they actually share the same code block. So the function that ends the section, it actually is the same code block for both end section and for stop. They are literally exactly the same. They're aliases for each other. Now, going forward, my understanding is that stop, the @stop, is going to be the one that is going to be used going forward. And end section is going to be discontinued eventually. Or maybe it may never be discontinued, but it's not going to be documented anymore. And the way going forward that's going to be taught is going to be used to stop or show. And that's basically why they switched them. So in older versions of Laravel, we used to use end section like this. And that was the way you closed a section. Well, in Laravel, I believe it's Laravel 5, they changed this, where they actually have two different ways you can end a section now. You can end it with stop, which basically means render this code right here and only this code. That's what stop means. Or you can end it with @show, okay? And what that'll do is it says basically render this code, but then also render whatever code might be in the inside of the template. So over here in main.blade.php, if I wanted in here, I could actually add some code and then put a stop here or an end section here. All right, and so I could end a section like this with a stop or an end section, and then the code inside of here, if I have in my file here, if I put show, what it will do is it's going to render all of this code, and then because I put show, it's going to go back and also render this code in here until the section is complete. So that's what show does. But if you just do stop, what it'll do is even if I have code over here, even though this code is in here, because I wrote stop, it's going to ignore this code and just move on and yield the scripts. Okay, so that's the difference between show and stop. And what happened is they added that feature in either the very end of Laravel 4, Laravel 4.3, or in Laravel 5. I can't remember exactly. They added the show and the stop feature, and that didn't used to exist. And so the only way we had to stop it was to just use end section. And that's how we used to do it with old Laravel. And now the new Laravel has this new feature. So they've added that show feature, and they changed the end section to stop. But to make it backward compatible, they left end section in there as well. So end section and stop are exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter which you use. If you want to be the most future-proof, I would recommend doing stop. And I apologize if there's confusion, but I also appreciate that you guys are bringing it up and that we can have these discussions because it helps us all learn a ton from it. And I love that you guys are reading the documentation because that's how you're going to learn. So good job, guys. So anyway, just wanted to clear that up because there was a lot of confusion because I continued to use end section and I didn't realize until later that the documentation for Laravel doesn't mention end section ever existing. It only talks about show and stop. Okay, so I just want you to know stop and end section are exactly the same. Okay, so whichever you prefer. That basically finishes it up for where we're at. In the next video, we're going to finish up CRUD, or we're going to do our read. We're going to pull something from the database, display it to the user. That's going to be part 14. Really busy this week, guys, but I am going to be doing a whole bunch of videos coming up. I'm going to be doing them tonight and tomorrow morning before I've got my busy week ahead, and that should give me enough videos to give you guys videos all of next week. I apologize for the delay last week, but I am going to get back on the horse and continue working, which is funny because I bought a horse last week. I'm not joking. That's part of why we were busy. I was helping my friend with this wild horse he bought, and anyway, it was crazy. It was literally a wild horse. Never been ridden before. Never been in a trailer before. It was freaking out in the trailer. Side note. So anyway, getting back on the horse tonight, and we're gonna get that running again. And yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for watching, guys. I know this was a long video. I was trying to answer all the questions for you and help you guys out. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and post them in this video below. You can email me, hit me up on Twitter, whatever works for you. I'll see you guys in the next video.